So I'm often extolling the virtues of training with overcoming isometrics and static contraction. I've talked about how it can help you improve muscle fiber recruitment and maximum strength. But how can you use that kind of training at home? Well, I'm glad you asked. So just to briefly recap, for those who haven't seen my other videos, overcoming isometric is any kind of isometric move, as in an exercise where you're not moving the joint through the range of motion, and in this instance you're unable to move it. So you have a yielding isometric, which means, for instance, holding dumbbells in this position until your arms give up, and then you have overcoming isometric, where, for instance, you're trying to push down a wall. In both situations, your arms aren't moving, but in the latter, the overcoming isometric, you are pushing as hard as you can and there's no way it's going anywhere, and eventually you're just going to have to give up. It's what happens when an immovable force meets an unstoppable object. That's the wrong way around. So this is really good for you for a number of reasons, but the most interesting one is that it increases muscle fiber recruitment. That means it increases your brain's ability to tell the muscle fibers to fire, the motor units. And this is because, as far as your brain's concerned, it's like trying to lift something that's your 1 rep max. It's one way you can train your 1 rep max without a spotter, and as we'll see, at home. Because normally, if you try to do your 1 rep max, you'd do it, you'd fail, you'd crush yourself. But when you're pushing an immovable force, you're still putting in 100% effort, or you're still able to put in 100% effort, but you're not going to crush yourself, and you can stop, and it's controlled. You're not going through the full range of motion, and that's one of the only downsides, but studies show that it can be very useful nevertheless. You can train overcoming isometric at different points. You can artificially move your limbs, and it's actually one of the training methods that renowned strongmen like Dennis Rogers and even Bruce Lee used to increase their maximum strength without even necessarily building bigger muscle. They don't need the bigger muscle because they can recruit more of the muscle fiber in the muscle they've got. So in a way, it makes your muscles more efficient, and it makes your brain more efficient at using those muscles. So to cut a long story short, it's pretty cool. But yeah, the problem is that training this way at home is rather hard. It's very easy if you're using something like a resistance machine in a gym, where you can stick the pin in to the highest weight and just push, and no harm, no damage. In your house, like I say, you can push a wall, but this is very awkward. You end up probably slipping with your legs. I find it's a bit tough on the knees, probably burst a blood vessel. So how can you use something similar at home? I'm going to show you one method, which is a little contraption that I have constructed. I'll be right back. Behold, the piece of metal with a string on it. Patent pending. So, it's not really. So what I've done here is very ingeniously taken some rope and tied it round what was once part of a pull-up bar for a door frame. So now I can stand on the bottom of the rope, shoes recommended because it digs into your feet, and then I can put in max effort into that curl. And I'm not strong enough, unfortunately, to rip rope in half, so that's not going anywhere. And likewise, I've used a figure-of-8 knot, so that's not going anywhere either. The harder you pull, the tighter it gets. It's impossible to slip out of. I can do overhand curls. I can do, if I stand further down the rope, it shortens it. Stand back a little bit. So I can do upward rows to work the lats. Theoretically, I could do overhead tricep extensions. And if I put a bar on the other side and was to lie down, which I'm not going to do right now, then you can use it for training your legs, because you can push down with your legs whilst holding it in place with your arms. And there's some other cool things you can do with this as well. So for instance, I talked earlier about going through the range of motion. Stand back again. So I can take my rope and I can apply max force, and then I can move my knees to allow the biceps to move through the range of motion. I might actually want to make it shorter so I can do the full range of motion. And I can feel that working the biceps, even though there's no weight involved. And that's also a great way, if you don't happen to have dumbbells, that you can train your biceps. The same goes for the lat pull down, lat rows. So there you go. That's one example of how you can train isometric strength at home using this handy dandy invention. And I'll let you use it free of charge. Just in case you don't know how to tie a figure of 8 knot, I'm going to show you that as well. So grab some length at the end of the rope and make a loop like so, as though you're going to noose a very small person. Then we're going to put our bar through the loop, and we're going to take the long end, we're going to wrap it round twice around the bottom of the loop. This is as though you were, if you imagine that loop to be a head, you're strangling it. Then what you're going to do is you're going to come through the back of the loop with the end as though you're stabbing it through its imaginary eye. And simply pull, and there you have a figure of 8 knot, and you can put as much force on that as you like, it's not going anywhere. One of the only things that's difficult to train with that method is the pecs, and to get around that you can simply take a football or something and push it like so, and in fact you don't even need a football, you can just do your most muscular position and push your arms together like so, and you can again feel it work in the chest immediately. There's not quite the same method you can use to train through the range of motion, so if you were going to do this and you really wanted to train through the range of motion, you would use a football and maybe a bunch of other stuff too, so you could start squeezing something large and pick up something smaller, and again, as far as your brain's concerned, you're just trying to crush 100 kilograms, makes no difference. So give it a go. That's how you train with overcoming isometrics at home, and it's how you build crushing power while sat down in the comfort of your bedroom or living room. You choose.